Hey, everybody. Welcome. It's another Hot Topic Tuesday. Interesting session today with our branch manager at our Orion office. We are in August, and it's a great time to talk numbers and how to be able to use numbers in your business, because it's not just during a presentation, but everywhere that you go. The more knowledgeable you are in regards to understanding the numbers and what's going on in the marketplace, makes you appear to be that much more knowledgeable and the person to be able to work with. So with that, I turn it over, Peter Toering.
Hello, everybody. All right, so one of the things that we want to go through today, we want to have you accomplish a couple of things. We want you to, number one, be able to feel like you are the knowledge broker, so that when you are at, barbecues and family parties, that you can feel that you know exactly what you're talking about when it comes to the market. We also want you to be able to properly handle your clients, especially your sellers, when it comes to numbers and pricing. So we're going to actually learn a little bit about that when it comes to numbers and pricing. So we're going to start with making sure that you understand the real estate market, that you can then take that information and pass it on, and then how can you use that actually in your business. So for those, I know that we probably have some My Real Source folks. I believe that Market Stats, it's powered by Showing Time, so it runs the same for both. So I'm going to share my screen. So you have to forgive my 600 tabs that I have open, because that is how I always am. Yep. All right. So if you are a real comp user, your Market Stats will be somewhere here. The reason that I use Market Stats instead of the real comp stats is I've found that sometimes the real comp stats, especially if you are in, and this is one of the things to be careful when we're looking at statistics, if you have areas, so like, for example, we are in Lake Orion, but realistically that encompasses Lake Orion Village and Lake Orion Township, or Orion Township. If you are like over where Sally is in Clarkston, realistically you have Clarkston Village, Independence Township, parts of Groveland, parts of Springfield. So sometimes those statistics either get meshed together or they get separated, and it can kind of cause some confusion. So what I've found is I really like using the Market Stats tab, because it makes things a little bit easier. So just be careful. And by the way, if something seems off, it may be because it is. So if you see numbers that seem off, it might be because it is. So the very first thing to understand about, and I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of a tutorial in InfoSparks while we're doing this. So this is something that I use to compare and contrast areas. It's something that I use and I actually will sit down with this tool with my listing presentations as well. So we're going to be really generalized. I'm going to show you a comparison, and I'm also going to show you a couple of things, a couple of the stats I use and why I use what I use. So I'm just going to start very broadly with Oakland County. Your tabs on the bottom are what your different topics will be. So your sales price, your new listings, your homes for sale. So new listings versus homes for sale is your actual inventory, your pending sales, your closed sales. And I'll tell you why I like each one of these. So your sales price, obviously this is a pretty easy one, but one of the things I actually really like here is I like that we've got the median as well as the average. I think in today's market, the median is a little bit more of an accurate measurement, especially when it comes to the sales price. Especially in an area, like Oakland County, where we have as low as 100 and something thousand Pontiac, up to millions of dollars. Dawn just sold 3.8 million here at Oxford. That median can give us a better idea of what's actually going on in the marketplace than the average. One other note while I'm talking about this, especially if you are going on a listing presentation and you need to be able to show them statistics about their particular home, you have a lot of different filters that you can use here. So we can see, like in Oakland County, we can see our median sales price for just 1,500 square feet or less, or for 1,500 to 2,000, or just waterfronts, or certain year builds. So those are just interesting things that if you need to dive in. Now, again, if you dive in too far, you will find that if you have 3 sales, statistics don't work very well. So just kind of be careful there. The next metric that I use, I'm looking at new listings, which is the inventory. And as I'm looking at that, by the way, just as a couple of notes for, kind of your own edification, you can view them as a line or a bar. I like to view them as a line. You can go back as far or as soon as 1 year and as back as far as 20 years. So for example, if you'd like to be showing them the number of new listings that we have, if you have some of these folks that are saying we're headed for a crash and you show them the kind of inventory we had in February of 2007 compared to now. And you can also show these as either a rolling 12 months, rolling 3 months, or each month of activity. So month by month. So depending on what your needs are there, I tend to use rolling 12 months. There we go. So that does not mean that we have 21,000 listings in Oakland County as of July. It means we've had 21,000 over the past 12 months. And that is up 7%. So again, like I said, I'm going to kind of go through these tabs and then I'm going to tell you why I use each of them. The homes for sale. This is our actual standing inventory that we have right now. So one of the things that we just talked about in our sales meeting is what we've noticed is our new listings in Oakland County are up 7%, but our homes for sale are up 16%. So what is that showing us, right? It's showing us that our properties that are coming on the market are staying on the market a little bit longer and they're not being absorbed as quickly and at the same rate. Our pending sales, fairly easy. We want to see what's being absorbed. Again, you've noticed now, if you've kept track of the last 3 numbers, you saw that we had 7% up in new listings, 15% up in inventory, and 2% up in pendings. We're absorbing less of our inventory. Closed sales shows how much we're actually closing, days on market. I don't feel the need to dive super into this. So to understand what's going on in the market, obviously we need to know how long properties are staying on the market. We need to know how many months supply we have, right? Remember, 4 months and under is a seller's market, 4 to 6 is a buyer, or as a balanced market, and 6 and above is a buyer's market. So let's look at how we interpret some of these numbers from a potential client perspective, from a recruit perspective, and then also from the perspective of especially our sellers. So let's start back at that beginning with sales price. One of the things that we've heard, Darwin and I were talking earlier, I'm a member of the John Burns KCM survey, and the big point that came out of their survey was that agent confidence in the resale market and pricing nationally seems to be flattening and taking a little bit of a decrease, and that resale market tends to be retracting. Well, we can show here, because your clients are going to be reading the newspaper, right? And if they're having national news, they're going to be seeing the national real estate news. What we want to show them is that real estate is hyper local, and that what really matters is what's going on in your backyard, not what's going on, 3,000 miles away from you. Ryan Gorman, who used to be the CEO of Coldwell Banker, said that the national average temperature is a really bad way to decide what to wear, right? So we really want to see what's going on in our backyard. And average sale price. Now, here's the thing. I don't expect you to remember the average sale prices for your different areas, especially if, like me, you work in a lot of different areas. The thing to know is, what are the trends? So where are we? Where were we? Where are we going? And where are we headed? So, for example, if I was talking to somebody and especially for me, I live kind of right on the border there between Oakland and Lapeer counties. If I was going to a barbecue tomorrow, one of the things that I would be talking about with pricing is that in Oakland County, our median, we've still had strong price appreciation, especially as compared to the average over the last 50 years, which is like 3%. In Lapeer County, our appreciation is starting to flatten off. So we don't necessarily need to be quoting numbers. What? Oh, okay, gotcha. So we don't necessarily need to be quoting the numbers to them. We need to be telling them a story. So I'm going to give you an example of telling the story. So the story that I'm telling about what's going on in the market right now, especially on the buy side, is this. I wrote 2 offers for a client in the same price point in the same market area a week ago. One of those offers was $60,000 above asking, and we lost the bid. The other bid was $40,000 below ask, and they won it. That's the story of what's going on in the marketplace today, is the complete bifurcation. Because if I went to a buyer and said, hey, we have a bifurcated market, this is what's going on in this section of the market, and this is what's going on here, you've lost them, right? Probably with the word bifurcation, you've lost them. So, but what we want to say is, here's a tale of two houses, right? I'm sure that you guys have had listings in your office that some of them are selling very quickly for multiple offers and some of them are sitting, right? What's causing that? And so this leads us to some of the conversations that you could have with your sellers that we'll get to in a minute. Something to talk about with inventory and days on market, again, especially as we're having these conversations at barbecues and family parties and things like this. And remember, the point of this is to be the knowledge broker. We have got, your average person knows 7 real estate agents. So who are they going to work with? It's going to be the one that's provided them value, that stayed in front of them, and that they feel they can know, like, and trust. Yes, everyone should use InfoSparks. Thanks, Jeff. So as far as new listings go, one of the things that we've seen is, again, I'm an old school guy that gets a physical newspaper every day. And one of the things I saw was an article about increasing new construction sales, that we're seeing some of that inventory stick on the market. Again, what we want to show them is, yes, we are seeing increases, but what, as I like to say, if you have a nickel and I give you another nickel, your amount of money has just gone up 100%, but that doesn't mean you have a lot of money. Right? So we need to be able to put these in context. So this is where going to the max here, where we look and we say, okay, how many new listings are on the market this month? Well, Lapeer County at 118. Well, how many did we have in 2006? How many did we have in 2007? These are interesting things to look at.
You know, seeing that graphic too, if you could go back here. I'm just looking at it, and we always talk about the cyclical part of real estate. And that graph just showed that very, very well, because you can see the cycles every year and it repeats. That you have the extreme high and then you go to the low and look at the times when those are occurring. But you can see that cycle in real estate. So just one more to be able to remember when you're looking at the numbers. And this gives a great visual of where we're at, because as I've been putting it, we're past the hot summer selling season.
Yes.
And we're moving into a bit of that slowdown. So,
which let's actually talk about that. That is something that we hear. So in the next 2 months, we're going to start hearing from our sellers, well, maybe I should just wait until spring. And I think what the numbers here show, if you look here, is there a single month where this is at 0? No. There's not a single month where listings is at 0. There's not a single month where closed sales is at 0. So what this is showing, what I can physically show them on this graph is that, yes, there are cycles, but every single month, the MLS has never read 0. So it still can be a great time to sell because, yes, there's less sales going on. There's also less competition. So that's a great thing if you're talking to sellers who might be looking in the future. To show them, yes, the cyclical nature exists, but the cyclical nature is not a detriment to your personal home sale. So talking about closed sales, this is something that I look at pretty frequently, because what I want to see is, are we absorbing the inventory that we're putting out? So this is one of the reasons I look at the hot sheets every day, is I see what's coming on the market, what's price reducing, and what's being absorbed. So I like to take a look at that. And again, it's something to look at to say, again, I think that we actually had our crash already. I think we had a transactional crash. And I think if you look at, I think it was basically right there. That was our transactional crash. And now, was it a little bit better January this year? A little bit better in January of 24, a little bit better in January of 25. So I think that our transaction numbers are coming back up.
and you know, the interesting part to it, again, it shows the cyclical part of real estate.
Yes, it does.
Because you'll see that it's January of each of those years where it meets its lowest point.
Mhm.
So, you know, and maybe I'll hit you with a surprise question.
Go for it.
With what do I tell somebody who says, well, should I list my house now or should I wait until spring? Or what if I'm in the month of December and somebody says, when do I list my house?
So I think I think that's actually an interesting question, because I think part of that comes down to what's the property. So if we have a property that's maybe a little bit unique and we have a smaller buyer pool for it, well, or maybe it's not going to outshine the competition. Well, maybe I want to get it on the market now when there's not a lot of competition. But if it's the best house on the block and I know that I'm going to beat out any other listing that's going to come on the market, maybe I do want to wait until April when I've got a larger buyer pool. So I think that's kind of house dependent, but I think especially on properties that maybe they haven't been totally updated, maybe there's something a little bit off on the presentation of the house, I think list it in the winter.
And you know that another one that's quite simple, which really it matters, I believe, the most. Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, when you're ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, the best answer is when you're ready, but look, the ratio of buyers to sellers is pretty much the same, but we just know the number of sales drop. Because like in this one, it's closed sales. Well, month of January, guess what? We're not closing as many homes.
Right.
Well, but when did they actually buy? Month of December. And then as we can see, it starts to go back up as listings come on the market when people are ready to purchase.
And for those of you that don't like graphs, that don't like numbers, because I am not necessarily a numbers guy, I've kind of had to become one because I'm one of these guys that's so disorganized that if I'm not real organized, I don't have it. What the other thing that I really like doing when it goes to telling the stories with the numbers, look at your market watches. Look at what's going on. Like I said, tell a tale of two houses. So I mean, we can very easily do that, right? We've got properties that have had huge price decreases, right? We've got properties that have, right? So we've got properties that have come down 10, 15, 20, 30, $50,000 that have been on the market for 46, 201, 32 days. And we have houses, if we look at the pendings, thank you, I appreciate the heads up, comp. And we have properties that went pending that went 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, many of them over asking. So even if you don't want to look at the graphs at all, you can just tell those stories and pick something that's in your neighborhood. So for me, I live in Lapeer County, I live in Attica Township, not a lot of sales there, but my closest town is Lapeer. If I'm going to a party in Lapeer or in Oxford, I might pick 2 houses that are in those neighborhoods and say, hey, when someone says, hey, Peter, how's the market? Well, let me tell you a story about this house on Bridge Street, and it closed over asking 4 days. It went pending. And another house over on Main Street, it's been on the market now for 220 days. And here's the difference why. And we know those differences why, right? Price, presentation, promotion. If you ever taken my listing class, you know that it's the 3-legged stool, or what do you call it? The
4 components to a successful
sale. The 4 components of a successful sale. So speaking of that, anybody have listings that are sitting on the market right now? Yes or yes? Because I know that our office, we have something like $11 million sitting that's been sitting there for 30 days or more. So let's talk about that. This is where days on market, percent of list price, and shows depending come into play when you are talking with your seller. So if I'm looking at my seller, and by the way, this could be at the listing presentation. This could be a lot of times when this happens is at my weekly sessions that I have with all my sellers, right? We talk on Tuesdays. Yes, absolutely, Marjorie. We talk on Tuesdays and we say, what has gone on with this listing? So, and what we want to do, right? Who says it matters, right? So if I come in and say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you need a price decrease of $25,000, they're going to immediately be defensive. If I say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here's what's gone on. We've had 7 showings. Or, you know, for a round number, we've had 10 showings. We've been on the market for 2 weeks. Here's the feedback. Now, let's look at the averages. So in Oakland County, let's look at this. Average days on market. And again, I think median is the better thing for a competitive listing. 10 days. We've been on the market how long? 14 days. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we've been on the market more than the median. And are we going to continue to have more excitement grow as our time on market grows, or is our excitement going to wane? So again, it matters who says it. Now let's look at this. What's our shows depending? How many properties, or I'm sorry, how many buyers does it actually take to get through a property to get it sold on average? Well, in Oakland County, it's 11. So we've had 10 showings. been on the market 2 weeks. What is that telling us? It means we should be having an offer pretty soon here, right? A couple more showings or less. Now, let's say that same scenario. I just talked to one of my agents this morning. House has been on the market 45 days. They've had 35 showings. So now we have a property that's well over the average days on market and well over the average shows to pending. So this is going to diagnose us one of two things or both about this property. Number one, there's something wrong with the house itself that is causing people to go through it and not offer. The second thing is we're off on price, right? Because it can only realistically be one of those two things at this point. Because you know that being a member of it, being an HRC agent, you're gonna have the best marketed properties in the world. So we've taken care of that other leg of the stool. So what we use this for, is as we're talking to them, this is an easy way to show them. So like I said, my conversation would be, we've been on the market over average, almost twice the average. We've had 3 times the number of showings. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what do you think that we need to do with this information? Well, are we willing and or able to change the presentation of the house if necessary? Okay, the answer is usually no. So if not, what can we do with this property, right? There's only one thing left to do. And that is reduce price. So when it comes from them, it's a very, very different conversation when we show them, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we've been on the market longer than average. We've had as many people, because the first objection that you get on price is, oh no, I just think we need to find the right buyer, right? Or I think you need to do more marketing. Why don't you hold another open house? Why don't you spend more dollars advertising? And the question that you can now ask is, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, median shows depending is 11. How many buyers do you feel need to come through the house before you change your mind on that it's just finding the right buyer? Maybe there's a number, maybe there's not a number. What I have found is that is where they kind of go, okay, maybe that's not, because the immediate reaction from sellers is to push right back onto us, and for us to show them in writing, in picture form, that this is not the case, really helps our case. So I do use this quite a bit with my sellers. Another way that I actually use this is in difficult pricing situations. So if I have a property that I have no comps for, I've got, hey, it's out in the middle of nowhere. I've got no idea. There's nothing else around it. There's just no comps. It's a super unique property. Sometimes what we will do is we'll work backwards. And this isn't going to give you an exact, but it's going to give you a starting point. So let's say that we've got a property in, let's say it's in, we'll give Steve's folks a bone here. Let's say it's in Shelby Township. Why is it? See, this is one thing, you guys, so you do have to be careful about, because sometimes it will be, it'll give you something like it has to be Charter Township of Shelby. Maybe not. Okay. Sometimes it will. Yeah, we're gonna do, there we go. That's what it was. Yeah, just had to start with school district. There we go. All right. Sometimes things are fussy. So something to take a look at here. So maybe what we've got is, we've got a property that, let's say that it is a 2,200 square foot house, and it's got no garage. No garage is a big deal there. Maybe that we're trying to figure out one of the comps there. So one of the things that I may start is I'm going to look at, okay, what is the, oh, see, there haven't been enough sales with, all right, garage was a bad run of it. Maybe it's a 2-bedroom. 2 bedrooms is another one that are goofy. What I'm going to start looking at is not necessarily the median sales price here, but what is my median price per square foot, and maybe I can make an adjustment. By the way, if you don't like the brackets that you have here, you can customize those brackets to however you'd like. So maybe we want to do, maybe you've got excess square footage. Did it not save for me? Appreciate it. So maybe we've got excess square footage here, and we all know, like with price per square foot, you have the law of diminishing returns. So maybe we've got a 4,000 square foot house. We don't have any comps for it, and we can use our median price per square foot to kind of give them a starting point. It's not going to be perfect, but at least this can give you a better idea. And again, you've got all sorts of different, maybe you've got a house in a neighborhood that it's basically only all your comps are new construction. You can back off for your built. You can back off for waterfront types. If you're in an area that there's a lot of waterfront and you don't have a good comp. The Clarkston area, you've got a lot of different lakes. Maybe you don't have a great comp for that. So I say, hey, I'm going to look at all of Clarkston schools. I'm going to look at waterfronts, and I'm going to look at what their price per square foot is there on all sizes. So it's another thing that you can kind of do again. And this is especially when you're sitting in front of your sellers. Hey, we don't have a lot of comps, but here's how we're going to develop a range and kind of at least get us in the ballpark. So these are a couple of things. I told you guys to keep it to like a real quick half hour. Any questions on what I do, on how we talk to people, on how we use this to deal with some of our seller objections, how we use it for pricing? Do you feel like you can now take some of these things and go to your next barbecue and be a little bit more of a knowledge broker than you were before?
I have a question. So I'm
Lydia,
not a numbers person, and I know you were going back and forth, and
Go
I
ahead,
have.
Lydia, I see you take your mute off.
Is somebody else talking? Hello?
About that. Lydia, go ahead and try again.
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, all right, yeah, it's us. But Jeff, you just answered one thing. Lydia, did you have a question?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay, we had the right thing. I had to make a switch here.
Okay. So I am not a numbers person, and you were going back and forth on charts, and I have no idea where you're getting the charts from. I thought I saw it once where you went into Realcom.
Yeah.
I'm
Let me
thinking, where's he
take
getting all
you
this
back
stuff
through it.
from?
Yeah, hang on, let me take you back there. And also, Lydia, I'm going to give you a real nice and easy. If you hate charts, I'm going to give you an even easier one. So if you're in RealComp, if you scroll now, these are moved around. So mine is right here. Maybe it'll be somewhere else. But if you just click on it, it's called Fast Stats. And all you got to do here is click More Stats. And that's what takes you to it. But let me show you a real great thing. If you hate messing with charts and all this stuff, there is this great thing up here on this tab that's called Fast Stats. And if you hate messing with all this stuff, you can just say, I want to know what's going on in Oakland County. Boom. And it's going to give you a report.
Lovely.
And that way you don't have to fuss with the different charts and everything. And maybe here you just highlight what's going on this year versus last year. And maybe this is something, by the way, for those of you that don't know, you can very easily put a fake green screen behind you on your phone on Instagram. Maybe this is something you put behind you and you do a quick market update. Hey, let me tell you what's going on in the month of July. And let me tell you a very quick thing, and then we will end at 12:30. I see market reports all the time that give specifics to, they say, well, this is how many new listings came on the market. And this is, and again, I don't think people care about the numbers. Tell us what's actually going on. So for example, this one here, I would say, hey, we've noticed an almost 20% uptick in new listings. What that might mean for you is that if you've been sitting on the fence waiting to buy, that now there's going to be more inventory waiting for you to go buy. So with prices being up 5%, hey, if you are, so again, I'm doing a market update. Hey, if you were thinking about waiting to buy until prices come down, guys, this is the 10th year in a row that we're having an increase in pricing from last year. Hey, if you are worried that if you come on the market, you're going to be sitting for months and months and months because your neighbor sat for months, the median days on market in Oakland County is 18 days. You could be in your new home by Halloween. So taking those and turning them into a, like I said, literally, you're not a numbers person. So take every number out of this sheet and just make it tell a story. So let's look at percent of list price received. hey, if you think right now that you're worried that as you price your home, you might be underbid, just know that almost every single property has received at or above asking of their final list price. Maybe it is, maybe they think that they can't afford a house in a certain area. And you say, hey, just so you know, the median price here is X. Or maybe you do a quick calculation of what that is. Hey, if you didn't think you could afford to live in X area for X amount per month. So again, take as many of the numbers out as you can, and again, turn them into a story instead of into a chart. That's the whole point of all this.
Yeah, I would even add to it that take what they've given you and look at the available statistics, see if something will help you show them. Because remember, we don't want to tell them anything we can show them. It's show and tell, not tell. Anything you can tell, you can show, always show. But show them, look at what statistic you can pull up that will tell them, hey, now is a good time to sell. Hey, you don't have to wait to sell because prices are not going to fall. And of course, we can anticipate that they're going to continue to rise. Here's the reason why. So yes, you can wait, but what's the reason for waiting to sell? Are they buying up or are they buying down? All of that goes into helping them make informed and logical decisions.
One of the last things that I continue to hear is, hey, are we headed for another market crash? And this is the chart that I always send. And I say, okay, if you shut off the tap in January of 2008, it would take you almost a year and a half to sell out the houses that are on the market. If you shut off the tap today, we'd be out of houses by October. That's the reason that and so what I asked them is, if I said, if you took every single house on the market today and you cut it by 30% price, what would you have? Well, you'd have multiple offers on basically every property that's available. So I do think, especially if you're running into some of these objections, you can just show them, and that really tells the story. So,
and you know, it just brings up one of the things you and I had talked about this earlier, and then we're going to let you guys go. But I want you to take a look at the chart back to 2006. The highlight of inventory was 2008, but everybody always talks about the crash happened in 2008. Well, gang, knowing Michigan, as you can tell by this, really, we were in it from 2006 through 2010, and it was in 2011, almost 12, but really 2011, it just shows that. That's when our market really started to return, and it's because of the decline in inventory and more normalization. But at the same point, low inventory, prices are still going up. We had the pent-up demand for homes where there is no inventory to choose from.
yeah. All right. If you guys have any questions, feel free. You guys, if you have individual questions, you want to find out how to get somewhere, feel free, text me, call me, email me. I'm easy to find. And we appreciate you guys showing up.
So guys, with that, here you get pushed out again.
Yeah.
So guys, thanks for showing up. Again, I don't have a topic right now for next week. If you guys have anything that it's like, boy, I'd love to be able to hear about this, please let me know. Share your thoughts, bring those ideas. What do you think may make that different? What is his name? We want you to forget him. No, Marjorie, it's Peter Toering. Peter Toering, Toering. He is our branch manager for the Orion location. So did he not do a great job? For those I can see you're on there, just give him some of these. Great job. And it's like, man, how can you tell buyers and sellers and actually make this interesting? So there it is for you guys, numbers. And it was actually an interesting 35 minutes for us. So we'll run it from there. I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much. Have a great one, and we'll be talking with you next week. By the way, if you're around the Shelby office, Steve Pouliot is hosting us, so feel free to drop in. He said he's buying like ribeyes and
Oh, yeah, we're gonna have a whole spread. It'll be good.
All right, guys, have a great week. Use those
See you
numbers
later.
and you know what to do. Go talk to people. See ya.